Hello and welcome to this video on Fireball Whiskey, a cocktail of sorts, but one that should be consumed with caution. The cocktail recipe is a combination of whiskey, cinnamon, and a sweetener such as sucrose or glucose. As it is a rather flavorful drink, there are also commercial versions that are pre-made. This avoids the need for any kind of mixing. The popularity of this particular drink means it can be consumed many ways. The usual suspects are straight, on the rocks, shots, or mixed with juice, cider, and even occasionally food. In Fireball Whiskey, there are arguably two dangerous ingredients: the alcohol and cinnamon. Most people are familiar with ethanol and what it does, so we will focus on the impact cinnamon has. The common cinnamon products available contain a chemical called coumarin. This is present in cinnamon almost no matter what state it is in and what particular kind of cinnamon we're looking at. The coumarin content of most formulations is between 7 and 18 milligrams per teaspoon or 2.6 grams. Standardizing this to a more easily used value, it's 2.7 to 6.9 per 1 gram. The adjustable daily intake, that is what you can deal with, is somewhere between 1 milligram per kilogram of body weight or roughly 5 milligrams per day per person. This means that you would only need more or less than 1 teaspoon of cinnamon to put you over that limit, and this is where you begin to see problems appear, especially with something like Whiskey Fireball, where the exact amount used, if the cocktail is being made by somebody, let's say, overly generous with the amount of cinnamon used to flavor it, could easily be more than your body could tolerate after only a few shots. Instead of jumping to the worst case scenario, let's assume that you're not going to overdose on cinnamon. There are other problems that this will generate. Cinnamon can cause a reduction in blood sugar levels. If you are lucky, this might be a relatively minor reduction. If you are less lucky, let's say, cinnamon does have a similar effect to insulin, and this means you could get a very significant reduction in your blood sugar levels. It's a condition called hypoglycemia, or too little hypo and glycemia sugar. The general side effects include tiredness, dizziness, and possibly fainting. It can also interact with other drugs. Primarily we are talking about coumarin within the cinnamon, so the doses will vary, and take this as a general guide, not specifics. Coumarin itself can affect the liver, and particularly within the liver, the cytochrome P enzymes. These generally work with things like ethanol, acetaminophen, or statins. Together, they can all increase the risk of liver damage. The way this happens is that the liver develops toxic byproducts of metabolism. These have been found both in animal studies of living animals and in vitro studies where they've looked primarily at cell cultures. The studies involved administering coumarin and then seeing what metabolites came out of this. The two most important pathways include the 7-hydroxylation pathway, which led to its removal, and is the most dominant in apes, and in this case humans, or the conversion of a lactone ring to form a coumarin compound together with it. This was an intermediate and could then be added to glutathione, which is one of the mechanisms used to remove methanol from the body, and this is then broken down and removed that way. It could also be broken down and turned into carbon dioxide. The latter of these two options is the less common, let's say, primarily because it produces many more toxic byproducts of the metabolic process. And so not only does it create these products, but these products then need to be processed in turn, generally by oxidation. This is obviously not good, and it is the, as mentioned, primary hepatotoxic pathway. That is the primary means by which coumarin within cinnamon can cause toxicity. The reason why Fireball Whiskey in particular is dangerous is the relationship between the increased amount of ethanol being consumed, along with the other challenges you put the liver up against. You're fundamentally throwing multiple problems at it to handle at once and hoping that it can do so. There is evidence to show that there are particular subsets of people who also have much greater difficulty handling coumarin from cinnamon and the byproducts generated from metabolizing it. This means that those people may be at greater risk of side effects and toxicity if they consume it. We've mentioned the relatively small amount required, the fact that it targets the same sort of parts in the body, particularly the liver's metabolic pathways, that are needed to deal with both ethanol and methanol. This means that, as a general rule, it may be a tasty treat, but like most alcoholic beverages, it should be just that, taken in moderation. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions you have below.